Did Shakespeare send every single sonnet to the young man? Or when he was with him, did he read them to him? Did they meet up in London? Did he introduce the young man to his fellow actors, fellow writers? We don't know. We don't know anything about the young man. I would have thought by now Shakespeare's commission to get the boy to marry and have a son was over. It clearly didn't work, certainly not within the time span of these sonnets. Did mother and father ever see any of these sonnets? If they had, they'd have been a bit cautious about inviting Shakespeare down to their country residence again. He'd gone rogue on them. He'd fallen in love with their son. The Victorians in particular tied themselves in knots when writing or talking about these sonnets. To them, not surprisingly, the homoerotic nature of so many of them was not acceptable. So they double thought them into heterosexual discourse. And modern academics warn us not to read these sonnets as autobiographical, citing influences and familiar tropes and poetic conventions to argue that these sonnets are exercises, not a set of highly literate diary entries. Both the Victorians and the modern academics, I think, are wrong. The particularity of so many of these sonnets speaks to me of a poet responding with sometimes startling frankness to the evolution of this passionate and obsessive relationship. Here's another poem that deals with sleeplessness, echoing Sonnet 27, "Weary with toil, I haste me to my bed." But now there's a sting in its tail. Is it thy will thy image should keep open my heavy eyelids to the weary night? Dost thou desire my slumbers should be broken while shadows like to thee do mock my sight? Is it thy spirit that thou sent'st from thee so far from home into my deeds to pry, to find out shames and idle hours in me, the scope and tenure of thy jealousy? Oh no, thy love, though much, is not so great. It is my love that keeps mine eye awake, mine own true love that doth my rest defeat, to play the watchman ever for thy sake. For thee watch I, whilst thou dost wake elsewhere, from me far off, with others far too near. From me far off, with others all too near. The young man is spreading his wings. And the older man, well, he's enslaved. Sonnet 57. Being your slave, what should I do but tend upon the hours and times of your desire? I have no precious time at all to spend, nor services to do till you require. Nor dare I chide the world without end hour, whilst I, my sovereign, watch the clock for you. Nor think the bitterness of absence sour, when you have bid your servant once adieu. Nor dare I question with my jealous thought where you may be, or your affairs suppose. But like a sad slave, stay and think of naught, save where you are, how happy you make those. So true a fool is love, that in your will, though you do anything, he thinks no ill. Does he really mean that? Though you do anything, he thinks no ill? No. It seems to me his thoughts are jealous, and absence is bitter and sour. I imagine many of us will have experienced this kind of obsessive relationship from one side or another. It rarely ends well.